Okay, so good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the PRAM Game Lab webinar series. Before starting the presentation, I would like you to know that we are recording it. Our plan is to upload the webinar on an upcoming YouTube channel. So I hope that you agree with that. First, before starting the presentation, I would like to provide some background information about the participatory research at McGill Game Lab. So, participatory research at McGill, PRAM, is an interdisciplinary group based in the Department of Family Medicine at McGill University. The group develops methods, training, and research in community-engaged research partnerships. Our goal is transformative engagement of stakeholders in the co-production and use of knowledge to improve health. The stakeholders will include researchers, decision makers, healthcare providers, patients, their families, and communities. One of the interests of PRAM is game-based learning to foster transformative engagement. Our approach to game learning has two characteristics. First, our games are co-designed with multidisciplinary stakeholders group, and second, our games all attempt to increase engagement in respectful, direct care partnerships, intercultural dialogue, adaptive management, and equity-oriented research, particularly supported those in resource-poor settings. Here at PRAM Game Lab, we are conducting a series of webinars to discuss different topics related to serious gaming in healthcare. Naturally, one of our main interests is participatory design of serious games. So with that being said, it is my pleasure to welcome Fabio Balli, our guest speakers for today's webinar. Fabio leads impact-driven projects in Canada and Europe, and after 10 years of intervention at the local and international level, he co-founded Breathing Games, an open science initiative to encourage people of all ages to develop respiratory health technologies. Fabio holds graduate degrees in human systems engineering, game design, and adult education. His research focuses on health commons. Thank you, Fabio, for being here.
Great, thanks. Thank you and welcome. What I would propose, maybe as we are a small group for now, is that we just do a short roundtable so that we can present each other shortly with maybe our name and what we are doing or what's interesting us. So I propose that we start maybe here in Montreal and then we can go online. So,
yeah. I'll start. I'm Neil Anderson and work with PRAM. And this is one of our initiatives that we're very proud of. I'm very glad to meet you and to start some more systematic interaction with your group. So excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Katie Wadham. I'm a patient transplant, and I'm a theater practitioner, and I do arts and game-based usually for my transplant.
Thanks. And
yeah. Yes, thank you. So my name is Juan Pimentel. I'm a PhD student here at the Department of Family Medicine, and my thesis focuses on game-based learning. Much.
So can we continue maybe online?
Yep.
So you just have to unmute when you speak.
So I just clicked on the raise your hand. I never used Zoom that much so far. So I'm Francesco Tordini. I'm the business officer here at Kermit, which is a research facility, research center hosted by McGill at the School of Music, and we are interested in anything respiratory among the other things. Anything which has to do with respiration, eventually music, movement, and health of particularly musicians, but not limited to musicians, so that's why we're here.
Thank you.
I will be next. I am Thomas Gaudy. I am in Montreal too. I am a game developer and I am focused on the use of video games for social needs. And I make, for example, lots of video games for blind people or motor impaired people. And actually, I start on a new project with you for the making of a new video game.
Thank you. Some other people want to present themselves?
Hi, yes, I'm Anne Cockcroft. I'm associate professor in family medicine at McGill, but currently in Botswana. I'm really interested to learn about game learning. I don't know much about it. I'm interested in it from a participatory point of view.
Thank you.
And I can continue. Torsten Richter, visiting scholar from Norway, and I also hope to learn more about game learning, something that I don't think have been tried in a Norwegian context. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I will be next. My name is Ivan, and I am a PhD student at the Department of Family Medicine.
So you're at, in Montreal too?
Sorry?
We're in Montreal too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Dion. I'm also a PhD student in the Department of Family Medicine, and really interested in this presentation. And a lot of my work focuses on developing participatory methodologies, but don't know much about game theory. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Someone else?
Hi. I don't know if you hear me.
Yeah.
My name is Nina. I'm a PhD student from the Faculty of Dentistry. I am very interested about all the gaming learning because my project is related with dental education. And I'm trying to design a model to teach future dentists with social concepts incorporated in the clinical practice. So maybe the game learning will be a good strategy to achieve that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a few more people that are hidden online. I don't know if one of you want to speak. So otherwise we have a new participant in the room.
Hi, my name is Ran Vanderwall. I'm a PhD student here in the department as well.
Okay, thank you. So
Hi, I am Laura Montalbano. I work at National Research Council. I'm PhD and a pediatric psychologist.
Thank you. In Canada? In Italy?
In Italy.
Okay.
In Italy. From Palermo. From Palermo.
Bene. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else? Okay, so I propose to present you a bit the agenda for today. And if you have questions or so, we can take them afterwards or during the presentation, depending if it's really urgent or if you feel it's really related. So I propose to present you a bit the context and trends about respiratory health, to present some elements of breathing games, the activities we did, which outcome we had, and then some thought beyond the initiative. And then we received some questions online, so we could go through them. And if you want to add some questions, you can also add them in the slide of the presentation with the comments. So you can find the presentation on the homepage of breathinggames.net. You can just go to McGill webinar, and then you find the link. So it's a Google Drive presentation. So maybe I will just reduce that. Maybe so some basic information about respiratory health. So we know that about 1 person out of 5 has chronic respiratory diseases worldwide. And in Canada, it's about the same. So we have COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is the most prevalent disease among adults. And it's the first cause of hospitalization after pregnancy. And then asthma is the most prevalent disease in children. So, and we know that according to a study done by Guy Paré at HEC last year, about 3 out of 10 Canadians used the health app in the last 3 months before the study. So we see that there is a trend to use technologies for health purposes. Also, some bad news is that all these respiratory diseases are increasing. So there should be a 30% increase between 2010 and 2030. And economic burden for this disease is 1/5 of the Canadian income, according to the Canadian board. And regarding health apps, there has been 9 times more health apps in 2018 than in 2013. So it's also a very important trend that we can build on. So I will present you breathing game with a short introduction video that you may also find online.
So this is very simple. We're designing breathing games for patients, for people who have disorders, respiratory disorders, and the objective here is to get these games up and running so actually the patients can use them.
The idea is to make the games so that the reading exercises can get into do more fun. Because they have to use exercises that often it's really boring, and so we're making games to make that process more entertaining.
Je suis content, de notre côté, on a vraiment un jeu qui est utilisable qui va pouvoir être évalué par un thérapeute et puis fonctionnel. Donc c'est ce qu'on voulait, on a quelque chose de fonctionnel. Faire un jeu qui est utile pour les enfants, qui leur permet d'apprendre à respirer, je pense que ce n'est pas meilleure pédagogie que ça. Donc, c'est quelque chose que j'encourage vraiment, pour moi, la communauté des artistes à participer à plus de projets qui vont dans ce genre. Ouais. On a besoin de plus de programmeurs. Voilà.
So in short, we try to bring together people from with different backgrounds and to collectively create games, but also a game controller, so devices that can transform the breath into a digital signal. And one key element in the initiative is really to the will to enable everyone to reproduce what we are doing. So we have prototypes of games that are more for education, like this one, which is about stress prevention. So the more you advance in the game, the more you're encouraged to breathe slowly and find peace if you don't have it. Then we have prototypes of games that are more for self-screening, like the one you saw in the short video, which is to do a peak flow self-assessment. So you just breathe once very fast through a device, and then you can launch the ball. The idea of the game here is not to really validate the exercise, because it's quite simple to do, but it's more to invite the children, for example, to do their exercise regularly, because ideally they should do this exercise once a day. And then We also, at the beginning of the initiative, we started more about games for treatment. So we developed some prototypes which are about cystic fibrosis therapy. So children with cystic fibrosis have to do about 1 hour exercise daily to release the mucus in their lungs. And we try to just transfer the therapy they do in a game so that it's more attractive. And, it's also giving them a visual feedback about the pressure they have to have and the duration. And with these games, we really want also to collect data so that we can better inform health policies and health practices. The idea is that if we are able to reach people in countries with low resource health settings, then we can also have people use these games on their mobile phone and possibly create a map of the situation locally. So that would be a long-term goal of our initiative. And then, of course, we are really in an iterative loop where we try to improve the games as soon as we get some feedbacks, and we plan also some studies to really validate the effects and the user experience. I can give you maybe speak a bit about how we've been working. So here below you see a table of the years. So we began the initiative in 2014, and we didn't do a lot, in fact, because we mostly worked together during events. So all the squares you see are events. The bigger one are game jams, where we had about 20 to 30 people. And we had this event during 2 or 3 days, some in Canada, some in Switzerland. And we will start some in France also in the fall. So the idea here was to say, okay, we come together with people interested. So usually we have a few clinicians, some people in public health, some people who are affected, for example, with asthma. We have designers, developers, and also people with no technical skill, but that can help for like the community, the collective. And then we invite them to, or we start with doing a presentation about the challenge. For example, when we do an event about asthma, we have patients and clinicians present the issues in asthma. And then the whole group is really ideating what they could do as a game. So this takes maybe the 2 first hours, and then people start to create groups and develop prototypes of the game. So that at the end of the 2 or 3 days, we have some prototypes that we can test. And this is the same. Usually in this event, we have 2 or 3 people that work on the hardware device. And the process is a bit different from hackathon because we really want to collaborate. So we don't want to give prizes to one team against the other. And also one difference is that we try to build on what was done before. So when we do a new event, we try to say, okay, we have these prototypes that should be improved. So who is ready to continue working on it and maybe bring new ideas? So that's really a continuous process where we try to really get to a product that is usable, in fact. And so the basic goal of this project or these events is to really co-create games. But the hidden goal is really also to encourage people to take ownership about respiratory health. And we had like participants in events, even who have asthma or were clinicians, who said, okay, I learned a lot about what I can do about it, or how I can like collaborate better maybe with other people in other fields. So that's one of the goals. Maybe to show a bit how it's usually taking place. So we have all these people that come together, and then we let them define what they want to do. So they build, in fact, their own teams, and that's how it's going for 2 or 3 days. And usually in an event, we have maybe half of the people that have already taken part to the initiative. And here are some examples that we created. So the first one is a game for cystic fibrosis, the second for stress release, and this is another version of the big flow test. So here, instead of launching the ball, you had to break walls. And then for the material, we have a very basic prototypes here with a pressure sensor for people doing cystic fibrosis therapy. Here we have a temperature sensor to measure the flow. And this is like a test bed that was developed by 2 engineers in Milan to really try to possibly test different sensors together, see what are the outcomes, and then combine the ones that are the most interesting for us. Yeah. So here is a short feedback from a participant to our game jam.
It was an eye-opening experience, and you know, I've never worked in any project with game developers, you know, environmental artists, and programmers. So it's really great knowing how we can start from just a group of people who are interested in building something together for in different fields, and then this whole process of like working together, collaborating, and each person bringing their own skills. I really feel it's an amazing experience.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like coming together and working for a common goal, common value, without having the same knowledge at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we learn from each other for sure. I learned tons this one, so it's great.
I will just present you maybe 2 other elements that are combined to these events, and then we can maybe take some questions if you have some. So one goal of this is also to do some research and back the work we do with research. So during this event, sometimes we had researchers do participatory action research and try to document the perception of the participants. So research is here in blue. Then we did 2 pilot studies to really basically test the games, but we plan to do focus groups to test the games for asthma and the hardware in the fall in Canada. And we also have some people in Switzerland who want to test the games for cystic fibrosis. So we have done the protocols, and now we are just starting to do the recruitment for the people who will test. And the idea is that we have different prototypes. We want to release them this year on the Android store and maybe iOS. And we would like really to try to get the feedback from users so that we can also develop it based on that. And another element that we try to do is to have outreach about the activity. So to really present the process we develop and the results. And it is really related to this open science approach, where we try to encourage other people to build on this initiative and take the source code of the game if they want to do something else with it. So it's really like the idea is really to document all we can so that people are able to adopt and fork the approach. So yeah, up to now we had a bit over 200 people participating. We have 12 prototypes, and we have done a few communications and media outreach. So I don't know if you have some questions already about this.
About 600 questions.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
But can we focus first on the game jam as you're working it? Okay, I like very much that you see the game jam not just as functional to your design process, but that is a process in its own right that's transformatory. So that's excellent. But there are some things that puzzle me.
Yeah.
You mentioned 3 days.
Yeah.
Were they all 3 days? Is there something that led you to 3 days as the ideal amount of time? How do you break up those 3 days? Could you do the same thing in 1 day?
Okay.
Would it be better if you did 5 days? So,
Okay, right.
So,
Yeah.
because the game jam is the centerpiece of both the technical co-design process as well as the transformatory process on the way people see breathing.
Yeah.
So that means that a lot of responsibility hangs on that. And then who goes to it lands up being crucial. And the transformation process that they live is of course, very interesting to you. So can you talk to us more about game jams, your options, how you designed it?
So in the beginning, we just took part to a hackathon organized by other people, and we had a small team. And then we thought, okay, let's organize our own event. And we took 2 to 3 days because it seemed to us a bit difficult to reach people that work if it would be longer. But over time, we've organized about 10 such events, and we see that though it's a bit difficult to continue on the games because we always have a lot of new participants who bring new ideas, who have to learn also about the project, what is happening. And it's not really easy to find an equilibrium between taking new inputs and ensuring that we have games that are running and that have good stability. So what we plan to do is to change a bit the approach and to do a bit less game jams and a bit more like retreats or residencies, where we would take maybe 7, 8 people with more technical skills and have them for 1 week or 10 days to really focus on boosting what has been taught in the game jams. And for the transformational part, we also think about creating shorter events for the public, where we really do an introduction to game design, where we maybe build more on board games or paper games, so that it's easier for everyone to join. And that's also one reason why we called that game jam, because hackathon was really perceived as technical for people outside of the IT. And we thought game jams is maybe more like open, but people always have a bit impression, if I don't have technical skill, it will be difficult for me to attend and to really benefit from it. I don't know if it's answering.
Yeah, but so in fact you're not going 3 days, you're going longer for some groups and even shorter for some groups.
For now, we have always done 2 or 3 days, but we want to change.
Now you're changing.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah. So I think, game jams are really an interesting way of starting the project or getting inputs, but to really focus and develop, we need other kinds of events. Do you have maybe other questions online or here?
Yeah, I have one question. It was something you said at the beginning, and maybe I didn't catch it right. You said that 3 out of 10 Canadians had used a health app in the last 3 months, or I don't know if it was 3 months.
Yeah.
But was that all Canadians or Canadians with respiratory disease?
No, it's for all Canadians.
Really?
Yeah, I could.
Wow.
I could give you the study. It's really interesting.
No, it's amazing. But 3 out of 10 used a health app.
Yeah.
Within like 3 months or something.
I'm not sure it means that they used it on the long term, but at least they tried or they downloaded it. Yeah.
Wow. No, thank you. I was just. It's a startling. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Another question? I can maybe continue and you can.
Sorry, can I just ask? Sorry, one more question. It's a bit related to the same thing. I'm actually a respiratory physician by trade before I'm doing what I'm doing now, but quite a lot of the people with COPD are quite elderly. Is that an issue in getting them involved, in the sense of, are they more hesitant to get involved with this techie sort of stuff because they're older? How do you find the age is an issue?
So for now we're only focused on children. So the games we created were for children between 8 and 12.
Okay.
I think we can, once we have a game, we can always adapt the visuals and the gameplay so that it fits to other people. But we intend to do a first game jam about COPD this year in Montreal. So we will see how it's going. But I think a lot of people after 40 are playing. They're even really regular players. So I would say they would be open. And maybe elderly people can also be interested to just have something more interactive and giving them feedbacks in their daily life.
Okay,
thanks. If you have other feedbacks or experience about this? Sorry. Okay. So I will just continue, and I would like to go a bit behind the initiative and what's for me a motivator, or what we can take in regard to health. So we know that we have these global goals, or before it was like the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. And the third goal is really to say we should have a good health and well-being for everyone by 2030, which is quite ambitious. And then we have also Canada, who is willing to be more inclusive in its health delivery. So one thing, or two elements that seem very important to me in this work is that up to now we have really worked individually, and when we checked the games for cystic fibrosis in the first year, we really saw there were different projects done by groups, by patients, or by researchers, by students, but everything was stopped after 2 or 3 years, and it wasn't able to. We weren't able to take the work done because it was under copyright. And I think it's a bit what's being done today. Most people working in health continue to think about protecting their innovation and creating a startup for making revenue from it. And by doing this, I think it doesn't really help the innovation to spread. So the idea that we want to really share is that if we bring something to build something together, then everyone can benefit from it. And that's also the idea of documenting, of having an open process, and of using licenses that enable others to reuse the work that is done. So we use different kinds of licenses for the material, documentation, and hard games that restrict a bit the use. So we say, okay, you can reuse the work we do, but the condition is that your organization should contribute to the project. So if your organization is taking the work and is improving it, then you should also share the work you do to the community. That's the kind of licenses we use. And we try to also use software that is free. So that means that the code of the software should be accessible, and everyone should be able to do what they want with the software. So that's a challenge, because up to now, for example, the games we created were done with an engine which is proprietary, which is Unity 3D. And now we want to switch on Godot, which is a game engine created by the MIT. but the Godot is starting to be interesting because they have developed a lot in the last year, and the community is increasing, but it's not as known as Unity. So that's also always a challenge. It's like we are using Google Docs because there are other solutions emerging, but they're not really user friendly. So yeah, I think that's one element. And for the documentation, we mostly use GitLab. GitLab is an equivalent of GitHub, but GitHub is proprietary. And GitLab is enabling us to share code and to have different versions documented so that other people can contribute and see the changes. A second element, in fact, that we try to bring through this initiative is to say, okay, we have today in medical education often or a remaining mindset about thinking about or thinking for the patient. So, and I think it's often very like, how do you say? I don't know, material, but like mechanistic. Yeah. And for me, I don't have studies to back this, but I feel this is the reason why people don't do their therapy and don't adhere to their treatment, because they're just put in a position where they're not empowered. So what we see often is that the solution for medical problems is technological, and it's not really fulfilling for the patients and for the clinicians. So what we'd like to do with this initiative is to say, okay, let's build together a solution that is adapted for you. And that's also one reason why we struggle a bit with when people ask us, okay, do you sell your product or do you sell your hardware? Because we could sell it, but if we sell it, it's always the same situation. So the person won't know how it's working, they won't take ownership about the process. But we feel that by doing this together, we can really refocus on the human link and try to empower people and encourage people to care about their community. So that's the second, element. I don't know if you have questions about this part.
Fabio, yes, it's Francesco speaking. Just a quick one about data. At some point at the beginning, you mentioned that one aspect is also to collect data commons to empower or drive policies and so on, which is very, very interesting, but also very sensitive as a topic for, it depends on how you define data. And then my question would be, yes, how do you define it? What kind of data? How much is data important in for the success of your developments, your prototypes? How much data you need, and who owns it, and so on? This kind of things. In the end.
So there is two things for the games for now because of the research constraints. We thought for testing the games, we will store the data of the games on the device itself, and in the game we will have a screen where the user can send their data to an email. So the user is in charge of sharing the data to the therapist, to someone they want to. And with this, we can avoid all the challenges about data management.
Yeah.
But we see that in the long term, it's not really appropriate. If we want to map the situation in a country, we really need to also have an overview of the user data. And we have some people that are working on distributed data management systems, like IPFS and blockchain. So the idea would be that the user decides to create an account on a decentralized database that is not managed by a central entity, but by that is spread around, on user's computer, and then the user would send some data that are anonymized to this database that we can then do some statistics. But it's really a long-term reflection. And,
I see. Oh, that's cool. That's a good way to use a blockchain idea.
And maybe it creates for me a link with hardware. We also had long discussions with clinicians whether the device we're creating is a medical device. And there is also this question that if it's a medical device, then it needs to be like centrally developed and product, which we don't want. So what we found as a solution was to say, okay, let's try to propose a study where we will invite communities like Fab Labs or maker spaces to reproduce the hardware and then evaluate the quality of the hardware they are doing. And if they change things, if they improve it, if they have really ethical questions about it. So the idea would be to encourage people to do the device so that it's not a medical device, but to also evaluate which quality it's producing.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay. I don't think I have much more to present. So some questions that were given in the forum. So I could go through shortly. What is the essence of participatory game design in game-based learning? For me, it's really important to have this inclusion idea, to try to also involve people in the whole process. So not only just bringing ideas, but also to think, okay, how can we then work together? And in the initiative, we then have people that are contributing to different parts. So we have individuals who have contributed to fund applications, of people who are focusing on the development. Some are more interested in hardware, and it's really like open. Sometimes people are not free. Sometimes people are more able to invest, and we try to really find a way of keeping it open, but also having a structure that starts to be more like sustainable. But yeah, for me, the essence is really the inclusion. And I really like a book which is from John Law, which is called After Method, I think, Math in Social Sciences. And it gives, it's a criticism of research, and it offers some reflections about
Can I talk to that part of it? Because that's clearly what's interesting to us in PRAM about this whole idea that at one level, as you say, opening it up means you've got space to get more ideas, and that's great. But there's another whole thing that happens, which is that the people who are involved change. They don't just change their knowledge of that subject, but they become emotionally involved in it. And emotional learning is a completely different wave to cognitive acquisition of knowledge. And of course, this is the centerpiece of Juan Pablo's PhD, the transformatory process involved in participatory game co-design. And I wonder, from where you were talking, you seem to be edging into almost personalized medicine, where personalized co-design of a game for oneself is the transformatory process that you're looking for. So it's kind of, you're sort of pushing a whole lot of envelopes at the same time there. Now there's the technical envelopes, which they're interesting enough, but it's not the stuff I can have an input on. But as you think about, for example, young people who really, for their own survival, need to change the way they see themselves in relation to whatever affliction they've got, it strikes me that participatory game co-design has got huge potential in that for them, taking them out of any feeling of being depressed and into a process of authorship, not just for themselves, but for others like them. So I'm very interested in that edging into almost personal medicine, that at one level you've got people doing that whole gene design stuff for personalized medicine, but it can also be cognitive as people take authorship in the co-design of their future and their game. So I find that a fascinating corollary that I'd never thought of the much bigger issue of transformation by participating. It implies for both of those, it implies you don't have to have a great game to make a splash. Eventually you'll get a great game because you carry on long enough, you're going to get a great game. But you don't have to wait to get a great game. So I like that a lot. And there's a whole area I'd not thought about, personalized medicine through serious games. Fantastic.
Thanks. Other reactions or?
And it's me again. Sorry, I can't hold it. If you were to start from scratch and say, I want to organize a game jam at 3 days, 2 days from game jam in a few months, how long does it take? What's the effort? What do you need?
You mean to plan it?
To plan it, run it, organize it. What's the...
I'm very minimalist, so I don't feel we need a lot. We have been doing game jams at Concordia, where we can have some space for free, and usually for a game jam we count about $1,000 for 20, 30 participants. So if we have the room, the biggest budget is for food, motivate people to join. Usually if we do a weekend, we do it on the full Saturday and Sunday from 10 or 11. Materially, we usually don't need so much because people have their own laptops, and people who work not on the technical just need some sheets and papers. And then I think it's more about having 1 or 2 people being able to facilitate the whole process. But otherwise, I would say it could be quite fast. I think one thing that we learned in the last game jams was, okay, it's really good if we can have a short introduction about the issue that is both coming from the patients and from the clinicians. Because for now we have focused on illnesses, but I mean we could also do a game jam which is more about prevention and just respiratory care. So in that case, we wouldn't even need that like scientific review or other. I don't know if it's answering your question.
Yeah, it is. It gives me sense.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think for me, this idea of I really see like the future of pharmacy as a place where you can go like in a fab lab, in fact. And you can have researchers or professionals who are more like facilitating your own work. So you could print your device, you could mix, I don't know, medical herbs or so. But I feel the researcher will be more like at the service of the person doing their own stuff and not thinking for them what they should do and what they should take.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also very different visions of health. Maybe positivist people won't be very, have the same approach.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask. Could you share a little bit of the challenge and opportunities of involving people without technical skills in game design?
Mm-hmm. So I feel like, often in the game jams we have the people with technical skills are more young, so they're usually young professionals, and often they have attended already a hackathon or so. So if they are a bit helped, they can work together easily and work on their own. And for the people who don't have technical skills, usually we work a bit closer with them, and we see what skills they have, what they want to do. Usually what we have proposed is really to work on the communications, to see, okay, can we do something for outreach, to increase the community. Sometimes we also have some people involved in a research team, where during the game jams we work on a research fund or on thinking, oh, okay, how can we do the focus group, what questions could we know? Yeah, I think that's it. But I feel one key element, up to now we really focused on digital games. And once we switch to more paper prototypes, then it's also easier to bring people and have them involved in creating board games.
In your game jams, do you have standard stages of the game jam? For example, the design of the motivations, the design of the chance elements, the design of the mystery, whatever it is that are your drivers in your game. Do you just let everybody cook and see what comes out, or do you go for it systematically through?
No, we didn't really take a very stepwise approach. What we did generally was, in the beginning, we had tour de table, where people present themselves. Then we have this half-hour, 1 hour presentation of breathing games and of the medical challenge. And then we invite people to discuss in 2 rounds in small groups. So from 3 to 5 people for maybe 15 minutes or 30 minutes. One time with the people of the same field, so developers with developers and designers with designers, to really think about ideas. And then each group presents their results in plenum, and we do a second round with people from different areas. So then we try to really bring people from different backgrounds to have them think again about the design and develop their ideas. And often at the end of these 2 rounds, there are enough ideas, and we have a discussion where everyone is there, and there is often 2 or 3 ideas that come up that everyone agrees on, and then others come to say, okay, what do we concretely do then in the 2 days? But like the game prototypes we have are, as you mentioned, they are not really great. So maybe we could bring more tools, in fact, to do better design or help people design better.
But with this thing, this is what we're learning, that with serious games, the benefit is in living it and in doing it. And if you land up with a great game afterwards, that's better, because then it can go further.
Yeah.
But it could be, and this is our experiment with medical students, it could be that the co-design of the game is sufficient for the educational process. And the game you get is almost for another group that you can't interact with. But for as long as you can interact with people, you can be getting a hit just by the way they get involved in the design.
And in fact, that's a bit what's happening now, because so in the three first years, we didn't have any budget. Last year we got some research funds also to host events. And we have this challenge that we have organized 2 or 3 game jams to develop games, but we are not satisfied with the game design, with the mechanics and so on. And so, for example, now we have Thomas, who is is joining and who is helping us really build on the ideas that was done on the knowledge we had about asthma, and he's really thinking about how to really create the game. So we try to really bring 2 or 3 people together to have the result that we want, and it's really another step from the cooperation. Yeah.
What is the geography you mentioned in the first title? It's Canada, Europe, France, Switzerland. What's in there? I mean, so far you've been talking about the experience, mainly the explorations here in Montreal, like Concordia and so on. What's the benefit you're getting from this larger network besides, you know, getting a larger collaborators network, which is great.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
So in the beginning, the project started in Montreal, and then I brought it to Switzerland. I had a connection there. We had a research team working on a plan on how to develop a game for asthma. So we had 7 researchers working for some time, and they came up with they were in a really traditional approach, so with university wages and many people involved. And they said, okay, to have a game about asthma, it would take at least 1 million Swiss francs. So they abandoned the project. And we see that we have like 15 prototypes with almost no budget. So I think we can do something in between where we can build up the community and then
get some budget and some output.
And I'd say the idea is really to have one functional game for each of the big like respiratory challenges, so that people can see what it is and fork it. And I think one benefit with Europe and Montreal, for example, they have really different practices. For example, in cystic fibrosis, in Montreal, the children see their pulmonologist every 3 months for 1 hour. So it's really a loose follow-up. In Switzerland, the physiotherapist goes to the child's home, I think 2 or 3 times a week. Switzerland is really focusing on, okay, what do you feel, which part of the lung is blocked, and how can you focus on it. So in the game we created about CF therapy, we first had a very strict pattern that was taken from here, and then we tried to provide a setup which would enable everyone to adapt it to their needs, so that people in Montreal can do their exercise as physicians require them to do. And then we have a setting that enables them to define, okay, I want to do more breathe, more pressure, I can change the parameters. And I think the other good element is, as we are open, it's easy to find collaborations. And then we have people that, when we do a game jam in Geneva, where we work about the games, we can then take what was done and develop it here. So it's really a win-win in that.
Yeah. Thanks again.
So maybe just I'll just go through as we come to the end. So for me, how long does it take? So I think after 2 days we can have a prototype, but then we need more work to really have something functional and user-friendly. Who can provide the best ideas? I feel the inclusion of different people is really important. And at the same time, with experience, I feel that having experts working on the project for some time is also really important. Because even if we have a lot of people thinking about designs, for now it has not been as efficient as having a few really professional game designers bringing their ideas. So maybe we have to separate between the.
I think there's another dimension to this one as well, because this implies the sort of the vertical integration across knowledge. But as we were talking about breathing games in relation to different, cystic fibrosis, chronic obstructive airways disease, but it might be that if you went horizontally and you moved into, for example, we've got somebody on this call who's a musician, into singers and wind instruments. And it could be that the breakthrough for these games would be to actually get that horizontal input as well. And that although they might not understand the specifics of a CF, it might be that the bigger concern and the bigger knowledge about the respiratory system and its uses can crack something open across the board. So I think it's not just this vertical integration of knowledge levels, but the horizontal integration across the universe, views of the universe could be very interesting. I would be fascinated to see some singers and wind musicians support the inquiry of respiratory physicians as they're looking at specialist management and specialist games for. They might have a lot of the answers for making it fun as well.
And it's right, like one feedback of a patient that was there was, yes, for me, like I have asthma, but I also have allergies and I have like different symptoms, but I don't separate them. But for the physician, it's really separated elements. And I think our initiative is a bit biased by the medical approach we took in the beginning. Maybe we could focus on healthcare and not separate health disease.
Could be interesting to put together a game jam across everyone concerned with breathing games.
Is there a handbook for reading? So a few ones which are known, I can add them at to the presentation. I think one or two goods are Jess Chell's Heart of Game Design, Rick Zimmerman, Rule of Play, Murray Flanagan, who's a well-known researcher. He wrote Critical Play, Jan Bogost, Persuasive Games. I don't know if you have one or two other things that pop up for now about books. You can maybe also add them at the end of the presentation. I don't have much knowledge about nonverbal strategies, unfortunately. I don't know if any of you have. Maybe you can. I don't know if we can send an email to all the participants so that they can also get in touch.
For sure.
Yeah, if it's okay for everyone. Yeah.
A question in the chat.
Okay.
Here, yes.
Okay. Nice sharing this on the topic. So I will add it to the presentation. Yeah. So it says it's about nonverbal strategies in video game. So what did you find surprising? Yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't know. I feel it's just a great experience to be able to see how it's developing and all the people that have been waiting to bring this case. So here you have a few sources. I will add some links. And I don't know if you have anything to close, because we are a bit over the time.
Questions, comments?
Well, I think that the good thing is to respect the time of everybody that's committed, and to say a very big thank you to you, for this is our third meeting, but the second presentation. So thank you very much for leading us in this way, and for the participants please watch this space. And if any of you have a presentation to share with the others in the game lab, please get in touch with Juan Pablo. We see this as an open forum for sharing and for strengthening the linkages between us. So thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending, and we will keep you posted about the upcoming events and the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see you at the next one.